Hi, MBC kids. It's Mrs. Newman coming to you live from the schoolroom inside my house. I hope you guys are doing well. I want you to know that you are so very missed by us at MBC, and we're hoping to be with you again very, very soon. But until we are, we're going to connect with you in unique ways like this. And I'm going to share a story with you tonight about forgiveness and learning how to forgive someone. You've been learning upstairs that forgiveness is deciding that someone who's wronged you doesn't have to pay. And that forgiveness comes from you and is between you and God when you forgive that person. And sometimes we need to be the one to seek forgiveness from someone else. So I'm going to read you a story tonight called Harriet, You'll Drive Me Wild. And as I read this story, I want you to pay attention to who's forgiving whom and what's happening in our story. Harriet, You'll Drive Me Wild. Harriet Harris was a pesky child. She didn't mean to be, she just was. One morning at breakfast, she knocked over her juice, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. At snack time, she dribbled jam all over her jeans, just like that. Her mother, who didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child. Harriet, you'll drive me wild." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. Before lunch, when Harriet was painting a picture, she dripped paint onto the carpet, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell. So instead, she said, "Harriet, my darling child. Harriet, you'll drive me wild. Harriet, sweetheart, what are we to do?" "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. At lunch, Harriet slid off her chair, and the tablecloth came with her, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead, she said, "Harriet, my darling child. Harriet, you'll drive me wild. Harriet, sweetheart, what are we to do? Harriet Harris, I'm talking to you." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. Later that afternoon, when Harriet was meant to be napping, she ripped open a pillow just like that. 1,000 feathers flew in every direction. There was a terrible silence. Then Harriet's mother began to yell. She yelled and yelled and yelled. "I'm sorry," Harriet cried. "I'm really, really sorry." Her mother took a deep breath. "I know you are," she said, hugging Harriet tight. "I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have yelled, and I wish I hadn't. But sometimes it happens just like that." "Big mess," said Harriet. "A very big mess," said her mother. And she started to laugh. And they laughed and laughed and went on laughing as they picked up the feathers together. It looks like Harriet and her mother had quite a day, and there were lots of "I'm sorries" to be had from both Harriet and her mom. Sometimes we need to say sorry for the things that we do, and sometimes people will need to say sorry to us for the things that we've done or that they've done. So I want to ask you tonight, after your day today at home, who do you need to say you're sorry to? Or who do you need to pray for? Maybe someone hurt you and you need to ask God to help you forgive them. We sure do miss you guys. We are praying for you every day and hope that we can be back with you soon. Stay tuned tomorrow for another story of bedtime.